What's going on, everyone? Burbank Aviation here, and welcome back to another video. Today we have the November 2023 fictional model airport for you guys. We have a very exciting update for you guys today, as we have a lot of news to go over, terminal changes, new routes, aircraft changes, and all sorts of stuff to go over in today's video. I really hope you guys enjoy. If you do, please make sure to like and subscribe, because it really help me out. We hit 1,000 subscribers about a week ago, a week and a half ago from now, so I really appreciate that. We're at about 1,025 now, so I really do appreciate the support from you guys. It's been absolutely amazing. But we are going to get started here. A couple things before we do get started. I apologize for how late this video is coming out. I'd hoped to have this video out almost a week ago, at least 4 or 5 days ago. I wanted to have this video out, but it was just really complicated over Thanksgiving break, so I was not able to get that out in time for you guys. I'm trying to get better on not having 2 airport updates posted at the end of the month within a span of about 4 days, but it's been coming down to that most of the time, which I'm not a big fan of, but I'm trying to limit that as much as possible. And then a second change is we did what I said what I was going to do, is move the international terminal over here, so we have a lot of space, which we will go over here, and then American and Delta are in this big row right there. So we're going to start here with the international terminal, kind of what the layout is. So what we do is we have 2 gates that can fit back here, and then a total of 4 international gates up here. So a total of 6 international wide bodies that can fit in this terminal. We have about 3 international narrow bodies that can fit over here on this corner, and then back here, these, like I said, there's 2 gates back here that can fit international wide bodies, but then we can also, it's also convertible to like a 747 or A380, just 1 gate back there. On that end where the Southwest is, there's about 3, maybe 4 spaces for domestic international flights. So that's where that's going to be, and then we're going to have domestic wide body international flights back here, 2 gates that can fit as well. So I'm really a big fan of how that works with that terminal over there. It's fairly simple. Delta's got a total of 2 regional gates, 1 converts to mainline, and then a total of 5 other mainline gates, not including the one that can convert to regional. So a total of 7 gates, and then American has a total of 4 regional gates, and then a total of 6 mainline gates over there. So Delta has a total of 7, American has a total of 10. Hopefully we'll be expanding that terminal so we can get Delta a little bit more room. But that's about it for right now, and we are just going to get straight on in today's video. I was not able to get the route sheet done for this month, so this is just going to be going off knowledge off the top of my head. We got this Breeze E195 here. This guy's going to be heading on over to Tampa after arriving in from Providence. Sorry about that. The Avelo 737-800 is going to be heading on over to Wilmington, Delaware after arriving in from, say, Burbank. The Allegiant A319 is going to be heading on over to, we'll say, Orlando Sanford after arriving in from Nashville. The Spirit A320neo is going to be heading on over to Fort Lauderdale after arriving in from Las Vegas. The Frontier A320neo is going to be heading on over to Denver after arriving in from, we'll say, Tampa. The Sun Country 737-800 is going to be heading on over to Minneapolis, St. Paul after arriving in from a new service in Milwaukee. The Alaska 737-900 is going to be heading on over to San Francisco after arriving in from Seattle. The 737-900 UNTF is going to be heading on over to San Diego after arriving in from Anchorage. The Spirit A319 is going to be heading on over to Myrtle Beach after arriving in from Newark. Myrtle Beach is a new service for us. The Alaska UNSEN 5 is going to be heading on over to Orlando after arriving in from Chicago O'Hare. Moving into the Southwest section, we got the Southwest 77 MAX 8 in the Canyon Blue retro livery right here. This guy just arrived in from Baltimore, he'll be continuing on over to Chicago Midway. The 77-800 in the Heart 1 livery behind it is going to be heading on over to Los Angeles after arriving in from Las Vegas. The Max 9 here in the West Coast Wonders or Orca livery for Alaska is going to be heading on over to Los Angeles after arriving in from Portland. Then to the Southwest Special livery lineup here, we got this 77-800 in the Freedom 1 livery here. This guy's going to be heading on over to near LaGuardia after arriving in from Atlanta. The 77-700 in the Lone Star 1 livery is going to be heading on over to Austin after arriving in from New Orleans. This 77-700 right here is going to be heading on over to Phoenix after arriving in from Houston. The Tennessee 177-800 is going to be heading on over to, let's see if I can get a better view of that. Tennessee 177-800 is going to be heading on over to Nashville after arriving in from, I don't think we've done Dallas yet. If Dallas was the one we did though, just a little bit ago, we'll do San Antonio right there. The 77-800 here on the Heart 1 livery is going to be heading on over to, say, Denver after arriving in from, we'll use, oh, it's a good one. We'll say Cleveland Hopkins. The 77-700 Canyon Blue is going to be heading down to, say, Orlando after arriving in from, oh, it's another good one that we can use here. Trying to think of something in like the Northeast. We use LaGuardia. And we'll say, man, I can't think of one. Let's say like Kansas. We'll say Kansas City there. And then the Southwest 77 Max 8 in the Mule 1 livery is going to be heading on over to, no, we did St. Louis. We'll say Washington Reagan. There we go. That's another big one that we haven't used yet. They'll be heading on over to Washington Reagan after arriving in from, I had one on my mind. We'll say, we just did Kansas City. Oh God, what's another? My mind is, I will say Tampa. There we go. I don't think we've used that one yet. So very nice there for Southwest. Moving on over to internationals, we've got this KLM 787-10 here. This guy's going to be heading on over to Amsterdam on the turnaround service. Got the Avianca A320 in the Taka Heritage livery. This guy is currently pushing back for the flight on over to San Salvador on the turnaround service. The WestJet 77-700 is on over to Calgary after arriving in from Vancouver. Very glad to have this. The Emirates 777-300ER with the flaps down configuration. He's going to be heading on over to Dubai on the turnaround service. The Air Tahiti Nui 787-9, if it would focus, there we go. He'll be heading on over to Papeete after arriving in from Paris Charles de Gaulle. The Fiji A350-900 is going to be heading over to Nadi, as always, on the turnaround service. And then the Southwest 77 Max 8 is going to be heading on over to Cancun after arriving in from Guadalajara. The Delta 767-300ER is going to be heading on over to Paris Charles de Gaulle on the turnaround service. Our only international route here for Delta, but I have heard they are looking to expand here in the future with the 767. I'm going to move on over here so we can start hitting this section. We got the Delta CRJ 700 here. This guy is going to be making the flight on over to Raleigh-Durham after arriving in from, we'll put Cincinnati. The Delta A220-100 behind it. If it will focus on that, there we go. Delta A220-100. He'll be heading on over to New York LaGuardia after arriving in from Tampa. The 757-200 here for Delta is going to be heading on over to Los Angeles after arriving in from Atlanta. The A220-100 here is going to be heading on over to Boston after arriving in from, we'll say, Detroit. The 77-900 here is going to be heading on over to New York John F. Kennedy after arriving in from Minneapolis. And the A321 here is going to be, this is the A321 Neo. This guy is going to be heading on over to Salt Lake City after arriving in from Seattle. The 737-800 here with the logo on the winglets here for American is going to be heading on over to Dallas-Fort Worth after arriving in from Miami. The A319 with the sharklets is going to be heading on over to Philadelphia after arriving in from Washington Reagan. The American A321 in the Medal of Honor Flagship Valor livery is going to be heading on over to, I'll say, Los Angeles after arriving in from Phoenix. The A320 right here is going to be heading on over to Las Vegas after arriving in from Charlotte. The E-175 is going to be heading on over to, where do we want to send this guy? I'll send the E-175. I'm going to actually get this at a better angle. So this E-175, he's going to be heading on over to, oh god, let's think of a route. We'll say Orlando after arriving in from New Orleans. The E-145 here is going to be heading on over to, say, Kansas City. The E-170 here for Republic is going to be heading on over to, I'll say, San Antonio. And the CRJ-900 is going to be heading on over to El Paso for us today. The Jet2X E-145, we got two of them right here. This first one's going to be heading on over to Miami after arriving in from Denver BJC. And the second one's going to be heading on over to Austin after arriving in from Dallas Love Field. Got the Delta 77-9er. This guy's currently taxiing in from the flight in from, let's hear what's one. We'll use Detroit as we put a small aircraft on that. So we'll say Detroit. He'll be continuing on over to I want to say that's all of them, but I'm not entirely sure. I'll just say Las Vegas for the fun of it. We're going to move on over to United and then the JetBlue section. Starting on this side this time, this United Express CRJ-200. This guy's going to be heading on over to New Orleans after arriving in from Tampa. The E-170 is going to be heading on over to Orlando after arriving in from Atlanta. And this United Express CRJ-200, this one's in the Evo Blue livery as well. This guy's going to be heading on over to Raleigh-Durham after arriving in from, we'll say Fort Myers on that one. The 737 MAX 9 here for United is going to be heading on over to Newark after arriving in from Denver. The 737-700 is going to be heading on over to Las Vegas after arriving in from, we'll say, what will be a good one? I guess I'll say LaGuardia. The 737-800 is going to be heading on over to Washington Dulles. This is the Star Wars livery, by the way. He'll be heading on over to Washington Dulles after arriving in from Houston. The 737-9GR is going to be heading on over to San Francisco after arriving in from trying to think of some of the routes I have. We'll say San Francisco in the turnaround service. This 757-200 just arrived in from Los Angeles. He'll be continuing out to Newark, so the opposite of what the other aircraft was doing. This United A320 is going to be heading on over to Phoenix on the turnaround service. And this United 737 MAX 8 is going to be heading on over to, I'll say, Chicago O'Hare, that's the one we haven't used. Chicago O'Hare on the turnaround service right there, which is very nice. The JetBlue A321 here in the Prism Tail is going to be heading on over to New York John F. Kennedy after arriving in from Fort Lauderdale. And the A220-300 is going to be heading on over to Boston after arriving in from, we'll say New York LaGuardia. Got the NetJets Bombardier Challenger 300. This guy's currently taxiing on over into his ramp from the long flight on over from Seattle Boeing Field. He'll be continuing down to Fort Lauderdale Executive. And this private Bombardier Challenger 300 is going to be heading on over to, we'll say, Boise after arriving in from Panama City, Florida. The JetBlue A321neo here in the Balloon's Tail is currently taxiing down to his gate after arriving in from Los Angeles. He'll be continuing out to Miami. The Amber Flight Swearingen Metroliner is going to be heading on over to... God, where do I want to send this guy? There was we'll say Tuscaloosa, Alabama, as that's really the only place I know down there. The American Eagle Series A-700 is just arriving in from, Toronto. He'll be continuing out to, we'll say continue out to Miami as a regional flight later on today. The Hawaiian A330-200 just arrived in from Kahului, the Saturday only service. We'll be continuing on over to Honolulu later today. The UPS M57-200 on to Chicago Rockford after arriving in from Philadelphia. The 767-300 on over to Ontario after arriving in from Miami. The FedEx 767-300 is currently pulling into his gate after arriving in from, we'll say, we'll put San Diego. He'll be continuing on over to, we'll say Sacramento. The FedEx 777F is going to be heading on over to Anchorage after arriving in from Memphis. The American 77-800 is currently taxiing down to his ramp after arriving in from, we'll say, he's going to be heading over to the international terminal. He arrived in from Cancun. He'll be continuing on over to Vancouver. This American UNSN 5 is going to be heading on over to, God, what's a good one here? I've used pretty much everything I can think of. We've used that. I will say Albuquerque after arriving in from, we'll say Oklahoma City. I know that's a really odd one. JetBlue A321 in the first mint livery. This guy will be heading on over to San Francisco after arriving in from, we'll say, Las Vegas. The 77 MAX 8 is going to be heading on over to Oakland after arriving in from, let's see here, we'll say Boise. The Breeze A220-300 is going to be heading on over to Provo, Utah after arriving in from Santa Ana. And then this United A319 right here is currently taxiing down to his gate as well after arriving in from, we'll say, what's one I haven't used? We'll say this A319 is coming in from, God, I can't think of one. We'll say Washington Reagan because I know United still flies to there. The United 77-800 down there in the Evo Blue livery is going to be heading on over to, we'll say he'll be the second flight on over to Houston on the turnaround service. Colorado 177-700 is going to be heading on over to Colorado Springs after arriving in from, God, man, I'm running out of routes. I really wish I had my route sheet right now. We'll say he routes in from Colorado Springs, continuing on over to San Juan. The American A321neo here is going to be heading on over to Philadelphia as well after arriving in from Phoenix. Delta 717 is going to be heading on over to say this guy's heading on over to Orlando on the turnaround service. Alaska 77-800 honoring those who serve. This guy's going to be out to... And what routes have we not used yet? I think we've used pretty much all of them. We'll say this guy's an additional flight out to Seattle. The United 1057-200 is going to be heading on over to Chicago O'Hare on the turnaround service, another flight out there. The UPS 747-400 freighter is going to be heading on over to Louisville after arriving in from Anchorage. And finally, to finish it off, the Frontier 820 Neo and the Poppy the Prairie Dog livery is going to be heading on over to Phoenix after arriving in from, say, Philadelphia. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please make sure to like and subscribe. It would really help me out. I know this one is a bit delayed. Really am trying to work on that. It's just been super hectic when we get into the back half of these months. But I am trying to work on that. I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to like and subscribe. It would really help me out. And I will see you all in the next one.